Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the Wright Flyer. I'm Randy Wright, and I'll be your captain on this solo flight special edition of our state-of-the-art radio program. Folks, this will be the final boarding call, so if you please, claim your seats, fasten your seat belts, kick back, relax, and enjoy the show, while I go ahead and delve into the pre-flight checklist, as there really is a lot of news and information to get to before I may fully indulge you with your in-flight entertainment. Well, folks, we witnessed yesterday one of the most deplorable sights on Capitol Hill. We see that Senate Democrats and Congress people decided to descend upon the floor of the House of Representatives, basically the chamber of the House of Representatives, in order to have a 1960s-style sit-in in order to protest the fundamental and inalienable rights of the American citizens to keep and bear firearms. All of this in response to the Pulse gay nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida that occurred just a while back. Instead of focusing on the frothing-at-the-mouth Islamo-fascists who want nothing more than to destroy our Western civilization and lifestyle, they want to blame our fundamental and inalienable rights to keep and bear firearms, and more importantly, our ability to defend ourselves against the very enemies that carried out that well-orchestrated attack that occurred in Orlando. You can't make this stuff up, folks. This is the way they think. This is the thoughts they wish to transmit to the American people. They want us to feel ashamed not only of ourselves, but for everything that we stand for and represent. Why would we bow down to this? Why would we acquiesce to these demands that are wholly inappropriate, that have no place in a modern society and a free society, and this great representative Republican form of government of ours? The fact of the matter is we should not bow down or capitulate to this. We should never give in to these demands. But these frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialists are so detached from reality that they don't care about what they are unleashing upon the American people. They don't care whether it harms the American people, whether it scars the body politique of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. Well, we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, are sick and tired of their machinations. We're sick and tired of them trying to trample upon your fundamental and inalienable rights. Yet, the Fabian socialists have been engaged in this sort of conduct for the past 150 years. And we see that what they're trying to do here is to infringe upon not only the Second Amendment rights, but various other aspects of the Constitution as well. As we've mentioned on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, they've attempted to go after our due process rights with respect to this no fly, no buy, and if you mention due process, we're going to go ahead and sit here and cry bill. Why? Why is it that with these people it's always strip and deprive, strip and destroy? That's been the Democrats' mantra for several decades now. They have been marching lockstep with this Fabian socialist Marxist-based ideology that is infesting not only our institutions of education from coast to coast and border to border, but also our information media outlets through the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, in which they peddle this narrative that is wholly detached from reality. What is happening to our country, folks? Well, let me recount a little bit of a personal story here, so if you'll bear with me, I'll get to this. It goes back to my time in high school. When I was in high school, I did 1 year of debate, and I went all the way to nationals. And my debate coach was a very wise man, but he was completely wedded to this idea of progressivism. Now, at the time, I didn't have the political experience I do today. I didn't know what the progressive movement was. I was still delving into history a little bit, learning, opening my eyes to the reality. But when I heard some of the things he said, how it was wrong to try and label Islamo-fascism as the cause for terrorism at that time, the 9/11 attacks were still fairly new. We were only 3 years out from that dastardly attack. And being the student of history that I am, when you look back at the 9/11 attacks, that's one of those dividing points in history. It's one of those things where you can really say post and pre 9/11. We all know where we were if we were around at that time. We all know how it impacted us. We all understood how we felt in the immediate aftermath of watching those airliners crash into not only the Twin Towers, but also into that field in Pennsylvania and into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. We understood at that time that there was a greater good. Even the frothing-at-the-mouth leftist, for a very brief moment in time, dropped their twisted agenda and came together under the full realization that these sorts of attacks were orchestrated not only to spread terror in our hearts, not only to make us fear and to look over our shoulder with this unrelenting sense of agony, fear, terror, but also to eradicate our ideals, to surrender our fundamental and inalienable rights, to capitulate to this medieval, barbaric ideology. But if you flash forward almost 15 years later, you find that we are nowhere near that. That people like my debate coach are still calling for our fundamental and inalienable rights to be limited. And the argument and logic, well, attempted logic, that he purveys and puts forth to justify these claims, which I believe are wholly specious, is that there are two fundamental and inalienable rights competing against themselves here, the right to life and the right to possession. But the whole premise of that argument rests on this notion that the rights are mutually exclusive. They're not. It rests on this notion that the gun automatically takes away life. The gun itself and the right to own the gun itself does not. We've always said that you have to exercise your fundamental and inalienable God-given rights with responsibility. But again, this is what the frothing-at-the-mouth Fabian socialists don't believe. They don't believe in self-accountability. They don't believe in self-responsibility. And therefore, they want this centralized system, top-down control of everything, whether it be the economy, whether it be our lifestyles, whether it be how we engage and conduct business. They want to micromanage everything. And again, this is why Alexis Tocqueville, that French philosopher who loved the United States, watching it in its earliest days, said that those who espouse any form, color, flavor, or aspect of socialism are actually New Age feudalists. They want a caste system in which their elitists, those that thumb their noses at the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, we the people, are just out of touch. They view us as the great unwashed Hun, someone not to be trusted, someone not to be allowed to wield the reins of power. But of course that's diametrically opposed to the foundational image that our founding fathers had for this nation 235 years ago, with the passage and the ratification of our United States Constitution. You see, this is what it comes down to, folks. They are diametrically opposed to all that we hold near and dear in America. They blame America first because they loathe and despise America because they want that feudalist system. They want to go back to the times of being overlords over the people. And I know that I've mentioned this on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, but I believe it bears repeating again here as I speak into this microphone, that these people, as they look upon us with deceit, are doing it for their own self-aggrandizement. They're doing it for their own enrichment at our expense. But that has no place in America. And our founding fathers were wary of this. They were aware of it. In their infinite wisdom and foresight, they included due process in the Constitution, and they included the first 10 amendments, or the Bill of Rights, to the United States Constitution, and pursuant to Article 5, they provided us with the ability, if and when necessary, to amend the Constitution, but not to do it in some willy-nilly, knee-jerk reaction. But here we are with Kat Sunstein's model being on full display with those washed-up hippies staging a sit-in in the chamber of the House of Representatives in order to protest our rights. Can you believe that we have reached a point today in the United States of America where our supposed leaders, are sitting on the chamber floor of the House of Representatives to protest our fundamental and inalienable God-given right to self-defense, our God-given right to due process, meaning that whenever they attempt to strip away a fundamental and inalienable right, it needs to be with notice and a hearing, and we need to be able to face our accusers. But these secret no-fly lists, these secret no-buy lists that they are attempting to compile up there in the dark, locked rooms in Capitol Hill, those are unconstitutional. They are exceedingly violative of the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of our shared United States Constitution. This is the aspect that the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media don't want to cover. They don't want to cover it because they realize that it will tear apart their propagandistic agenda that has no basis in logic, reason, or reality. But here we are, folks. They're pushing it. They're pushing it without any type of thought, without any basis in reality. And what's even worse about it is these hypocrites are sitting on the floor being defended by men carrying guns. You see, they want to strip and deprive the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty of their ability to defend themselves while they protect themselves. It's this type of divisiveness, it is this type of ability for them to carve a niche out for themselves and leaving us out in the cold that completely alienates people. It's this sort of thing that allows the agent provocateurs of tyranny, despotism, and oppression to take root in a free and open society like that of the United States of America. Therefore, we must come together in solidarity and unity, standing shoulder to shoulder to let our voices be heard in no uncertain terms, that we will not allow these charlatans, these hucksters, these con artists, these snake oil salesmen to trample upon our beloved Constitution. They think the Constitution is in the way of everything that they stand for and represent. They think that what they're doing is wholly more important than our fundamental and inalienable rights. Well, I'm here to tell you that nothing could be further from the truth. Now, don't take what we're saying here at face value. Look at it for yourselves to see what these people are doing, what they believe. But there was one Democrat that came out yesterday and essentially said that the Democrats are sick and tired of our fundamental and inalienable right to keep and bear firearms. To be even more specific, what he said is that they are sick and tired of the Second Amendment just in general. And to realize that a sitting member of Congress would go out and say that is just beyond the pale. It is beyond the scope of belief. Yet it's true. The guy is Mike Doyle, Representative Mike Doyle, Democrat, no surprise, of Pennsylvania, called for a revision of the Second Amendment during Wednesday's sit-in on the House floor. And they are shutting down the House of Representatives. Now, I'm sure many of you recall that when the Republicans sought to shut down government when Obama kept pushing for an increase of the debt ceiling, they were lambasted by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. Where is this salivating mainstream media right now? Why are they not lambasting these Democrats for obstructionism? Oh, that's right. Again, that would go against their Fabian socialist propagandistic agenda. Therefore, they will not even lift a finger to really tell the true narrative here. But we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, will do so, because we realize that our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights are too important for us to simply give up on this, for us to allow those Fabian socialist charlatans to be able to control and dictate the narrative from this day until kingdom comes. Because if we allow them to do so, they will continue to march down the path of the cancerous twin doctrines of political correctness and moral relativism, all designed to tear this nation apart at the seams. Well, enough is enough. Our God-given rights are far too important to just allow to be torn asunder like that. And when we see that there are those, like my former debate coach, who are going to sit there and tell the up-and-coming generation, and in given time, those generations which have yet to be born yet, that guns are evil, that guns have some sort of magical spiritual power to control people, then we have a major problem. Because what they're doing is further distancing and divorcing ourselves from the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of the United States Constitution, and that will only create greater problems here. Remember, they're not doing this out of love of country. They're not even doing it for security. Because if we recall that the FBI director said that he didn't even want these terrorists to be prohibited from purchasing firearms because it would cause them to go underground and make it more difficult to find them, that doesn't matter. That didn't matter. These whining, pacifier-chewing Democrats are going to continue to sit on the floor of the House of Representatives, taking up space, smelling of body odor and every other nefarious aspect of their grotesque lifestyle, and obstruct. And they will be aided and abetted by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media. I wish that I had words of solace to provide you with this, but I don't, other than this, that we, the people, by the very design of this representative Republican form of government of ours, have the ability to stand up to these charlatans and say no. What a powerful and uplifting word that can be, particularly when you aim it at those who are trying to take away your fundamental and inalienable rights. These people think that they are the lords on the manor. Going back to that whole notion first put forward by Alexis Tocqueville, that anyone who advocates for any form, flavor, or facet of socialism is actually a New Age feudalist, they think that they are the lords of the manor, and that we, the stupid little unwashed villains, remember, villain being a landless peasant, a serf, who wasn't even allowed to leave the little meager plot of land he was afforded by the lord of the manor, to just accept their edicts. Why would we do this? Where does that have any inkling or connection with the true spirit and character and heritage and national identity of the people of the United States of America? It's not within our history. It is offensive to even think that they would go this way. And you know, they love to play that game of rallying around the offended. Oh, we're going to promote this type of labeling in the United States. These insular and discrete minorities deserve to have special, particularized, carved-out rights that are superior to anyone else's. Poppycock, the United States of America is a nation of laws and not of men. This is the entire notion of equal protection under the law. But we see they don't care about due process under the law, so why should they care about true equal protection under the law? Truth be told, they don't. They never have, they never will. And if you think they're going to, you are gravely mistaken. But why? Why is it that we're here? Why is it that we see that the government is just pushing at every available given opportunity to trample upon the sacred rights of the people? It's because for generations now, the Fabian socialists, using the tactic and strategy not only of divide and conquer, but also of incrementalism, have slowly ratcheted up the pressure. Now, they're sensing that they see a light at the end of the tunnel. They think that their goals are just within reach, that it's within grasping distance, and that they are about to achieve everything that they've been pushing for the past 150 years. But let's make that light at the end of the tunnel be the lantern of liberty. Let it be the voice of the American people trampling them over, saying enough is enough. That we will not bow down, that we will not capitulate, that we will not collaborate, and that we're not going to give up our due process rights. These things are too intrinsically important to our identity, to our way of life, to who we are as a nation and as a people. And the fact that we are even having to have this conversation is disgusting. And we need to let this sentiment be known. Because live and let live in this type of atmosphere and in this political climate, it needs climate change. They want to combat climate change. Here's the real climate change they ought to be worrying about. They ought to be worrying about the American people getting fed up, sick and tired of their charade, of their attempts to belittle us, of their elitist mentality that looks down upon us, because it is not a welcome mindset. That sort of frame of mind belongs to the feudal era, which has been properly relegated to the rubbish bin of history. But we see that they want to bow on to that. Now, Judge Andrew Napolitano, who we don't always agree with, there's a lot in his past that has driven my first officer, Jeremy Grapington, up a wall, but he said that the people in the government who want to control our personal choices are the enemies of freedom. And he's absolutely right. When we stop and think about what these frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists, who trace their origins back to 19th century Great Britain, and who had adopted as their original iconography that of a wolf in sheep's clothing, which, if we remember, is the method by which the Gospels described how Satan would infiltrate, pervert, and corrupt society, are the enemies of freedom. They are positioning themselves in such a way that they are diametrically opposed to our inherent, fundamental, and inalienable rights. And if we allow them to take even an inch in this battle, to take any territory of our rights, then they're going to keep pushing, and they will never be satisfied. You can never negotiate with these people. And that's why Jeremy and I have such a problem with the quaff waffler, the mafioso quaffioso, who himself on this issue of alleged gun control has shown that he is solidly in the camp of the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists, that he supports this no fly, no buy, or we cry bill. Well, go cry on somebody else's time. Go away. Leave this alone. Because what you're doing is attempting to infringe upon the constitutional rights of the citizens, and we are sick and tired of it. Pack your things up, go back to Quaff Tower, and descend straight to hell. Because we don't accept and tolerate this behavior from Democrats. We're damn sure not going to tolerate it from a Democrat masking around or dancing around or prancing around in an ill-fitting Republican suit. But as for the detente wing of the gutless opposition party, people like Mitch the Turtle McConnell, we know they'll bow and capitulate. He was the one that allowed it to go to a vote. And yes, all 4 of those provisions were shot down. But how long are they going to keep pushing? Well, they've been pushing to dismantle this nation of ours for the past century and a half. And there's no inkling that they will stop at any time in the foreseeable future. The only way that we can stop them is to be proactive in maintaining and safeguarding our fundamental and inalienable rights. And that is exactly what our founding fathers would have called upon us to do. And that is what we will do. Because there is no choice here, folks. We either stand up for our rights or we bow down and capitulate to those forces that want to destroy us. Those forces that are seeking to destroy us must be stopped. And our founding fathers knew they were there. Our founding fathers understood that they would try, by hook or by crook, to slowly strangle the life out of our fundamental and inalienable rights. And we see that this out-of-control federal government, under these disastrous 2 terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime, still refused to properly name the enemy, still refused to show who it is that are actually posing a significant threat to the United States and to our freedoms and to our liberty. Now, Twitchy had an interesting article, and I want to look upon this. It's entitled that the dim sit-in was briefly interrupted by men with guns. Now, what was that all about? And Nancy Pelosi probably didn't get how bad it looked, but it was interrupted by security personnel just coming in. There was a security sweep happening in the House chamber, and this happened at 11:13 a.m. today. And the security sweep was that 5 agents and a dog moved in. But Nancy Pelosi kept speaking undeterred. What they don't realize is these people were there to maintain order. The Democrats that are obstructing the natural flow of government here, who are standing in opposition to the fundamental and inalienable rights of the American citizens, would be protected by these men that are pushing them from the floor. Why? Why do they do this? Why do they do this when we say that we need to protect the rights that are sacrosanct to the American people? It's because they hate those rights. Folks, this is not some small thing. This is not some light thing that we're discussing here. This goes to our fundamental and inalienable rights. It goes to the very heart of what it means to be an American citizen and to be a free nation and people. It's not up for grabs. It's not up for negotiation. And they cannot just write a piece of legislation to drastically, fundamentally, and irreparably alter the Constitution. Article 5 provides them with what they need if they wish to curtail the fundamental and inalienable right of the popular sovereigns to keep and bear firearms. Amend the Constitution. Why won't they do that? Because they know they won't get the support. Why? Because the American people don't support those sorts of charlatans who do everything in their power to weaken us, to take away that which rightfully belongs to us. Yet that's what they do. That's what they double down on. That is their ideology. It is their belief, and they are intrinsically, drastically wedded to it, and they refuse to divorce themselves from it or to abandon it, even if that is what reality, practicality, and anything else would demand. So we see that's what it is. And yet they don't want to call out the real killers. They want to flood us with these so-called refugees who are Islamo-fascists. They want to flood us with ISIS terrorists. And isn't it funny that whenever a terrorist of the Islamic faith, if you can even call it a faith, attacks the body politic of the United States, goes after the true ultimate wielders of sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, oh, that's just a rare exception. But they don't do that with guns, do they? No. Again, they don't do it with guns because that goes against their propagandistic agenda. And that would work against the narrative that they have been pushing for the past century and a half. Well, enough is enough. Why do we have to bow down to this? Why do we have to capitulate to this when it has no connection or connotation with reality? That's where we are, folks. That's where we find ourselves. And I like how the American thinker came out and said that these are aging hippies who are violating house rules to perform gun control PR stunt. This started yesterday. And they thought that this would look good. The narrative would look good. But you know what? The hippies were stinking, moronic people that originally staged sit-ins, I thought, for civil rights. Now they are staging sit-ins to deprive constitutional rights. Amazing, isn't it? We've come full circle. These aging hipsters have become the new agent provocateurs of tyranny, despotism, and oppression. Again, these frauds, these charlatans, should be chased out of there with pitchfork and torches by the true wielders of popular sovereignty. I'm not advocating bodily harm or injury or violence. I just am sick and tired of having to deal with these charlatans attempting to encroach upon our rights, to make a publicity stunt of being a fascistic type regime. Have we forgotten that we fought fascism? Well, they don't care. They didn't want to fight fascism. They didn't want to stop the National Socialist German Workers' Party. And then we have the Donaldov, the Don Trumpolini, the mafioso quafioso who wants to transform the gutless opposition party, or GOP, into a workers' party. Why? Why? Again, we see that this election cycle has become the election cycle of excrement. Enough. Enough, because our rights are far too important to allow these aging hipsters, as the American thinker put it, to take over our lives. They don't deserve it. They don't deserve to have the ability to tell us how to live our lives, to tell us what matters in our lives. They are the true problem for all of us. It is time that we stand in staunch opposition to them, that we no longer allow them to just stand in the way of our rights. Gun control, all of this stuff that they are trying to push, it has no place in our open and honest society. And then we see yesterday that Vermont Senator Nerdface Boyne B. Sanders, the failed flying saucer who did not get the nomination for the Democrat Party, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get it, so I'm going to sit here and drink some sauce on the House of Representatives floor and chamber so that we can protest those evil guns. Because climate change caused terrorism. Yeah, what happened to that narrative? Are they still going to push that narrative that climate change caused terrorism? It's not Islamofascism. It's not the very thing that the frothing at the mouth Islamofascists push for. It's not what Omar Mateen said in that 911 call. And oh, by the way, the Obama administration tampered with the transcripts there, changing Allah to God to try and use moral relativism once again to push this twisted, politically correct narrative. Again, they don't want to identify the enemy. They want to make the enemy the guns. They want to make the enemy the conservative, God-fearing American citizens. Enough! Enough! We are not stupid. You may think we are. You may point to the lion Trumpidians who have just been made so angry, so blinded by rage that they see red, and try and paint all of us that way, but that's a false narrative. We see right through it, and we will go toe-to-toe with you, holding you accountable for all of those things that you are attempting to say, because it has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. We are on to you, you Fabian socialist frauds. We've been on to you for a very long time now, and we understand what's at stake here. But why does that not surprise me? Why is it that we see that the Democrats are pushing for a stripping of so many rights? It's because the entire apparatus of these systems, the entire push to strip and deprive us of our rights, is necessary because they know that we would stand up to them. They know that we would not bow down to their attempts to redefine the United States of America. And it makes perfect sense as to why we wouldn't. Because if we start redefining ourselves, if we start trying to reach out and to become like the rest of the world, then we would lose what it is that made us great. This is why they don't believe in American exceptionalism. And again, I have to point to the presumptive nominee of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, the Donaldoff. Because he said in an interview once that he didn't believe in American exceptionalism. If you don't believe that the natural law and that Providence had some inkling over the design of this representative Republican form of government of ours, then you are willfully blind, closing your eyes to reality. And you have no place wielding the reins of power. And we understand that they don't care about facts, that they will ignore facts. That's what they do. That's how they believe that this country should go. Why? Why? If we see that they are going to ignore the oath of office that they took to uphold and defend the United States Constitution from enemies, whether they be foreign or domestic, then we know that they'll do anything. We know that they will continue to push for stripping us of our rights. And the Democrats want to sit there and pat themselves on the back to tell themselves that they are brave for going against our rights. That's what they always do. That's the self-congratulatory, vainglorious aspect of who they are and what they do. And we see that Matt Walsh over at The Blaze said that they aren't brave for standing against the Bill of Rights, that they're tyrants. He's absolutely right. They are tyrants. That's why the clear and concise language within the four corners of the Second Amendment says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Well, then they try and say that, oh, well, it's just for hunting or recreation or home defense, and you don't need a 30-round magazine to do that, and you don't need a quote-unquote assault weapon to do that. Well, that's why the militia clause is in there. First they tried and say that, we don't need the fundamental and inalienable right to keep and bear firearms anymore because the National Guard is the militia. First of all, that's not true. Second of all, the militia clause is there to give a reason why we have it. It's there to protect us against an out-of-control, rogue, tyrannical, and illegitimate federal government from trampling upon our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. But you see, they want to twist things. They want to use that dark and foolish notion of semantics, as we've warned about ever since we first took off over the friendly airwaves back on September 11th of 2015. This is why it is so important to pay attention, to develop and foster a fluent and working knowledge and understanding of the Constitution, and thereby your fundamental and inalienable rights as well. Because then you are empowered with the ability to see these threats and to move to nip it in the bud before it can fester and metastasize in the body politique of this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. It's that important, folks. It really is that important, because what they want with this so-called sit-in is to deprive us of our rights. They are claiming that this sit-in protests gun violence? No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It just shows that they are the very sorts of souls that our founding fathers worked so diligently to stop, to move against, to deny having the reins of political power in this country. And it comes down to this entire problem of this pro-Islamist, anti-constitutional movement that exists within the heart of the Democrat Party. And there's also the detente wing of the gutless opposition party that would cave and allow them to have this. Remember that one of the things that Toomey of Pennsylvania was trying to do was, the no fly, no buy, or we cry. To a lesser extent, that's what Texas Senator John Cornyn was doing. Now, Cornyn, to give him what little bit of credit he deserves here, did say that there needs to be a provision in there to provide for the protection of due process, to provide notice in a hearing. The problem is, the way it was still set up was to provide that after the right had been stripped. No, 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 no. No. Due process must be provided before. Before. And you can't just limit a constitutional right willy-nilly. I know that there are so many on the frothing at the mouth left that would love to just be able to limit rights whenever it was their prerogative to do so, whenever they thought that it would be in their best interest to do so. Well, that's not how our system of polity works. It's never how our system of polity works. But that's what they do, that's what they believe, that's what they champion. Well, it's got to come to an end, because what they are doing is they are pitting American citizen against American citizen, and they are not solving the problem. Let's take, for instance, this idea that they have of the no buy, no fly, no cry. Omar Martin, yes, he was investigated by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Yes, he was considered a danger. But then, after they looked into it, they thought it was just a bunch of braggadocio, that it was a bunch of bloviating, that it would be much similar to the statements like those of Donaldolph Julius Caesar Trumpolini when he said that he could go straight out onto Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and not lose any supporters. And so they took him off the list. So even if that list was in place, it wouldn't prevent the Islamo-fascist from carrying out that attack, but it might if someone mistakenly, Joe Blow citizen, was put onto that list, would deprive him of his rights, or her of her rights, without due process under the law. That's amazing, isn't it? Isn't it amazing how that plays out? It's still punishing law-abiding American citizens with these secret lists, these star chambers of the new era. We were opposed to the star chamber. We were opposed to these secret courts, but yet we see that that's what the Democrats are pushing for even more of. All in the name of national security, all in the name of stopping gun violence? Spare us, because it wouldn't have done a damn thing. It wouldn't have prevented this. It's about power and control. I think that the Democrats need to explain to us why they want to make it easier for the terrorists to escape again, much like they did under Bill Clinton. That brought 9/11. You see, there's blood on the hands of the Democrats. They don't want to admit it, but there is blood on the hands of the Democrats because their policies created all of this. Their policies are what pushed us into this untenable situation. And they need to be held accountable for it. They need to be held accountable for these nefarious attempts, these unconstitutional, extra-constitutional attempts to strip and deprive we, the people, the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this republic, of our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. Again, they are the ones that are orchestrating all of this madness. And it's not in our best interests. But it's never been about our interests. It's always been about their interests, and only their interests, because those to them are the only things that matter. That's why George Washington warned us about factionalization. There should be those within the rank and file of the Democrats decrying these attempts to deprive us of our liberty, but no, they march in lockstep under a collectivist mentality, and they want to infest and indoctrinate this entire community of popular sovereigns with this collectivist filth. This mental masturbation that is destructive. Why? Because, that will stop the bad shooties, the batty gun the guns, they control people. Give me a break. Give me a break. It is time that we stop these people, that we destroy their efforts to destroy us. And it is such a fraud that they are trying to force upon us. Now, here's something interesting, too. These same little House Democrats, these poor little whining babies, want Obama to expand education programs to children of illegal aliens. And maybe he can give them fast and furious firearms while he's at it. You see, they want to give firearms to the drug cartels in Mexico. They want to give easy access to these terrorists, and they want to curtail law-abiding citizens. If you don't see that as asinine and backwards, then there's a problem. Again, why is this not being mentioned in the rank and file of the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media? Why are they not covering the real threats to America and to our national security? Yeah, that's a little different. That's a little difficult. But this whole notion of battling fascism rather, with unity and guns, well, getting rid of guns and whatnot, it's sick. But here's the thing. What is it that the Democrats are trying to do off of this stupid sit-in? They're trying to turn it into a fundraiser. They're trying to raise money off of it. Hey, we want to strip and deprive you of your rights, so give us money. Go to hell. Go straight to hell. Do not pass go, just go straight to hell. Because what you are doing is no different than any other tin-pot dictator that has ever assumed the mantle of political power in any nation on the face of God's green earth. Stop it. That's wholly unacceptable. It's wholly intolerable. It's insufferable. And we will not stand for it. We will not stand for it. Because we know that if we are stripped and deprived of our ability to defend ourselves, then these terrorists are just going to move to attack us. But no, they want to empower the terrorists. They want to give the terrorists even more than what they already have. That's asinine. It's dangerous. It's harmful. It goes against every facet of what matters in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And we see that Nancy Pelosi is just so happy that they could have it highly publicized. And they sent out a brief email in which they said that they would violate our fundamental and inalienable rights and therefore they needed money. Why? Why is that the position that they always want to take? Why is it that they always move in that direction? It's because they loathe and despise the ability of the American people to think for themselves. They don't want us to be able to think or act or make decisions for ourselves. Enough. Our fundamental and inalienable rights are sacrosanct. But they're going to move in a three-pronged attack. We've already seen the courts attempting to attack this with that Ninth Circus decision and the Supreme Court refusing to hear the assault weapons bans for Connecticut and New York. We see that they are moving in on our rights, yet they rather laughably try and say that they're not seeking to deprive us of our firearms. The hell they're not! Their actions are speaking far louder than their words, and they are creating this frenzy to strip and deprive us of our guns. That's why they push for those bills. That's why they won't compromise on anything. But we shouldn't be attempting to compromise. No, it's all about using a tragedy, using bloodshed to push a political narrative, to push a political ideology come hell or high water. That is the real ugly aspect of what it is that they're doing. And it's not good. It's not beneficial. It's not American. In fact, it's un-American. But again, you're not going to hear the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media cover this. You're not going to hear them to discuss the stripping of our liberties. You're not going to hear them discuss how this is trampling our fundamental and inalienable rights. It is all about trying to go after us. It's about trying to strip and deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable rights. It's power. Power is what they want. Power is what they do. And at our great expense. They don't care. Why should they care? Well, they should care because they took an oath of office to uphold, defend, and maintain our fundamental and inalienable rights. They should care because what they're doing is going against all that is of the great importance in this country. They are the ones that have moved to be diametrically opposed to our rights. They are the ones that have been attacking us. And they are the ones that are empowering those who want to destroy us, those who would carry out these twisted machinations. And that is problematic. It goes wholly against all that we hold near and dear. And it has to stop. It has to stop because our rights matter too much. So, we know that through this House sit-in that the Dems are trying to make gun control be a top issue in the looming election. And we already know that the titular head of the gutless opposition party, or GOP, is wishy-washy on gun control. We know that he has embraced the no-fly, no-buy, or we cry bill. And they are crying. They're crying like petulant children in their attempts to strip and deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable rights. Enough! It must stop. Gun control is bad. Gun control harms us. It really needs to stop. But why? What would it do to go against all of this? By going against their push, we would be standing up for our rights. But they try and paint it out as we're just disconnected from reality. No, they're the ones that are disconnected from reality. They're the ones that are standing against the supreme law of the land. Article 6, Clause 2 of the United States Constitution makes it open and obvious that the United States Constitution itself is the supreme law of the land. So stop violating the law, you Democrat scum. Stop attacking our rights. But they're not going to. Then we see that the gun control sit-in had stretched into its second day. We're there. They are occupying the floor. They are obstructing. Now, I know that I mentioned this already on today's Solo Flight Special Edition, but where is the mainstream media? Oh, that's right. They support stripping and depriving us of our fundamental and inalienable right to keep and bear firearms. Remember, they're the ones that go out and violate these federal laws that already exist for straw purchases. Oh, but it's so easy to buy a gun. It's so easy to allow these terrorists to attack our fundamental and inalienable rights. Because it's the big bad American that caused that. Remember? It was the ACLU that said that it was the big bad American. The conservative Christian right that caused it. Again, nonsense. But, you know, what the Democrats are pushing for here is so bad that even the frothing at the mouth leftist ACLU says what they're doing is wrong. That right there is kind of amazing. That right there should discredit everything that the Democrats' narrative has been. That right there should go against what the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media have been peddling in regards to this issue. But you're not going to hear it from them again because it's an agenda. It's an anti-constitutional agenda. An agenda that has no place in our country. And what's so amazing is we see that the House wraps up without gun control votes. So for all of this, they didn't even get what they wanted. What a bunch of pathetic losers. That's right, folks, they are pathetic losers because they are the ones attempting to grab your guns away from you. And don't say that they're not. I love this. That same debate coach that I mentioned earlier in the program said, it's no longer it's not about taking your damned guns. It's about restricting access to them. You can't do that. You can't do that. Not if they're American citizens. Due process under the law. What a dangerous, slippery slope that they are pushing us towards. They are creating chaos and anarchy within a nation of laws, not of men. Why? Because they don't care. And then we see that Benedict Arnold Paul Ryan was booed by the Democrats as they pushed through a bill while the sit-in continued. So you see, they're like a bunch of spoiled, petulant children who are obfuscating and obstructing. The Republicans never obstructed like this when we did government shutdowns, yet we were painted as the villains, and then the detente wing of the gutless opposition party grew feckless and weak and spineless. No, we need to fight fire with fire. We need to basically attack any gun control measures. And it needs to be done with strict application and now. Because it is violative of all that matters. And so they're trying to say no bill, no break. Okay. Then do it the right way, you Dems, because you had catering on the floor. You had food there. You had the ability to just walk out whenever you wanted. No, do a real filibuster. Don't do this little willy-nilly publicity stunt. Go out. Propose a bill. Actually try and force this. Not through your little shenanigans. Actually be legislators. No, they don't want to do that. That's too difficult. They're the ones that have been obstructing legislation for these two disastrous terms of the Barack Hussein Obama regime. That's all that is. That's all they care about. It's not about what matters. It's a narrative, and a false one. Maybe they can sit there and fundraise off of this. Maybe they can sit there and make political hay out of stripping and depriving us of our fundamental and inalienable rights, but I don't think that that's going to go anywhere. I think that's dead on arrival. Excuse me, folks. I have to have a little sip here of a zesty drink. It does parch the throat to sit here and talk about these whining, petulant children, but I do sacrifice to provide you with this indelible yet pure sense of enlightenment that we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, always provide you with. But what we see with these Democrats, what they are trying to do, and what they have allowed to happen has failed. They got sent home for the July 4th recess. That broke up the sit-in. Isn't it great? It's fantastic. They didn't even accomplish anything. Is that how we're going to hear the graduates of Pavlov School of Journalism for the Salivating Mainstream Media portray this? Is that how they're going to convey the coverage? No, of course not. They want to force a gun control vote. They just want to vote. What are the specifics? No, they're not going to give specifics. No. Because people would oppose that. Because people would oppose it, they cannot allow it to go forth. And therefore, they're not going to. Therefore, they're just not going to allow it to go forth. So we see that they are nothing but a bunch of charlatans, nothing but a bunch of hucksters, con artists. And their plan fell. It fell, and it failed. And the Washington Post had an opinion piece that said that this was a justified act of civil disobedience. Stripping and depriving American citizens of their fundamental and inalienable rights is never a justified action. Never, unless you have due process under the law. And what is the major complaint with this? That there is no due process under the law. So that person that wrote this, let's see, who was that? Who wrote this little drivel? Okay, Thomas E. Mann, Tommy Mann, who is a senior fellow in governance studies at the Brookings Institution and a resident scholar at the Institute of Governmental Studies at the University of California, Berkeley, and co-author of It's Even Worse Than It Looks. Yeah, you are even worse than you look and sound. You are a tyrant. You are an agent provocateur of destroying the societal fabric of the United States. You should be ashamed of yourself, but you have no sense of shame. He says, sometimes civil disobedience is justified, sometimes it's necessary. The unprecedented events playing out on the House floor, Democratic members staging a sit-in, the well of their own chamber, represents such a moment. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't, you charlatan. It represents, like, the Nazi Party sitting in the Reichstag pushing the Enabling Act. These people would burn down the Congress if they could, if they thought it would allow them to have their fascistic goals and agenda come to mind. Why don't you study a little bit of history, you fraud? Oh, that would be a little too difficult, wouldn't it? So let's see what this putz goes on to say. The immediate and understandable precipitating events were the massacre in Orlando and the refusal of House Republican leaders to permit a vote on a measure to try and keep lethal weapons out of the hands of possible terrorists. Except that we've already shown that it wouldn't do that, and it's just trying to go against the supreme law of the land. Look, you thug. Look, you small-minded mental midget. You want to curtail the fundamental and inalienable God-given right of the people to keep and bear firearms? Go through the Article 5 requirements. Get 2/3 of the state legislators to vote for it. You're not going to. You're not going to. Because the people understand that it is you frauds who are trying to disarm us so that you can then run ramshod over us like the true fascist dictator types and totalitarians you really are. Well, enough is enough. We have had it with these attempts to attack our rights. But he says they're justified. No, they are not justified. They have never been justified. And the vast majority of the American people don't support what they're doing. But they're going to try and spin this narrative that it's against the American people, that they're trying to keep us safe. No, it's not. It's not about keeping us safe. It's not about anything other than control. It is control. It is an action to deprive us of our rights. And, of course, they started screaming when the C-SPAN cameras got shut down. No, that's not a deprivation of liberty. There was a bill on the floor talking about national security. But you see, again, the Democrats don't care about national security. If they really did, they wouldn't be pushing this, because the director of the FBI said that it would be detrimental to their investigations. No, 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 it's not about that. It's never about that. It's about power, control, stripping us of our rights. Oh, it's so amazing that we see this. It's so amazing that they would push for that, because in their minds what they're doing is a good thing. What they're doing is going to stop gun control. But we see that there was a movie gunman in Germany who injured 50 people. Wait a minute. I thought Berlin had some of the most stringent gun control laws in the world. Why didn't this stop them? Surely he should have known that was a gun-free zone, because the entire nation is a gun-free zone. And if the entire nation is a gun-free zone, then he shouldn't be able to have a gun. Oh, you mean to tell me that the logical fallacies of the left were just shot down by this occurrence in Europe? Well, of course it was. Recall in Paris, they have gun control laws too. Did that stop the Islamophobes from carrying out the terrorist attacks that they did? No, it didn't stop it. It didn't stop any of it. And it's not going to. It's not going to, because it is designed to strip and deprive law-abiding citizens of their right to self-defense. Now, Germany doesn't have it. No. It is all about gun control. And it's so funny. So funny. If it weren't so serious in its application. But of course, they don't care about reality. Look at the way that they went after the police officers in Baltimore. And by the way, another Baltimore police officer that was charged was found not guilty of murder in the Gray Death. So here we see that once again, a frothing at the mouth Fabian socialist that was pushing this twisted narrative, this twisted agenda of balkanization, was wrong. But again, it's all about stripping and depriving us of our rights. It's always been that for these people. It always has been. And they want to continue the sit-in even though the Congress has been adjourned. Why? Why? Again, it's because they don't care about our rights. They don't care about our liberty. It's about everything that they want to do. Why? It's always against us. It's always trying to strip and deprive the American people of their rights. But it shouldn't be about that. That should not be the narrative in this nation. It's disgusting. It's disgusting and it's frustrating. And they think they're brave. And it's tiresome, folks. We really are tired of this. Because when you look to what they're pushing, they never relent. They never give up. They never back down. And they don't point to the real problem. Should that work? Should that be allowed to stay in? No, instead, they allow things like lynch going on to muddy the transcripts that were released. They support when they try and say that, well, we were originally going to redact it to be transparent. That's Orwellian speak. That's not real. That's not reality. That's not based on anything that makes sense. It is their attempts to continue with a narrative that is wholly destructive, wholly detrimental to all we hold dear. And she refused to say, she being Loretta Lynch, refused to say who made the decision to remove the references to Islamic State and its leader from the publicly released version of a transcript of the 911 call involving the Orlando nightclub shooter. So they obfuscate when it comes to the real cause behind this, and then they attack the ability of the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this country from being able to defend themselves. That narrative is so twisted, it's so backwards, it's so destructive, it's so diabolical that it's beyond the pale, beyond belief. But it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Because they will continue. And they will say that the Second Amendment needs changing. And they say that we just are misunderstanding the Islamo-fascists. That when they kill us, that's probably an act of love. Are you serious? Are you serious? Have we really fallen that far in the nation as a people that we're not going to hold these people accountable for these acts? No, I think the people are sick and tired of this. I think that the people will hold these frauds accountable, because what they're doing has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. But come hell or high water, the Dems will lie. They will cheat. They will steal. They will obfuscate the truth, and they will have the support of their lapdog media. The graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media is all about pushing a Fabian socialist agenda and narrative on the people to normalize their behavior, to make it become acceptable as we are just so exposed and desensitized to it. That's not going to work. That's not who we are. That's not what we stand for. It's not what we represent. But it's what they are going to push. It's what they are going to conjure up in their little minds as being the way to move forward in this nation. And again, you notice that back in 2012, Barack Hussein Obama used the campaign slogan of "Forward," the same slogan that's always used by tin pot communist dictator times. Well, this is the type of forward that they push. A Pravda-like propagandistic agenda whose narrative is not based in facts or reality. But the truth always has a way of shining through, folks. The truth is what will get us through all of this. And we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, are not going to abandon our mission statement of empowering you, the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours, to stand up against these totalitarians that are doing everything in their power to strip and deprive you of your rights. We can't rest because they don't rest. That's the one aspect of their message. No bill, no rest. That's the one aspect that's true. That's where they're being honest. They're going to keep pushing in incremental fashion, like the Fabian socialists they are and have always been. And that means never relenting, that means never giving up, and we must fight fire with fire. We must be as hard-hearted as they are. And that is why we have proposed the constitutional compositionist movement. Because that is the only way that we are going to be able to decisively, swiftly, in a manner of speaking, but without instant gratification, being able to put a stop to this once and for all. And once that happens, we can't rest on our laurels. Because they are Fabian socialists, they will attempt to rise like a phoenix from the ashes to once again descend the iron curtain of tyranny and oppression over this great nation once again. Because they always have that avenue. They always have that approach. Deep down in their heart of hearts, they think that that is what is good for the nation. But Adolf Hitler thought he was good for Germany. Turned out not to be true. Turned out to be horrible. Well, the Democrats are the same. They are the same because they move to attack our traditions and institutions. You know, they've attacked the traditions of marriage. They pushed
the transgender bathroom issue, they attempted to make this all about balkanization and then to say that it was our rights to keep and bear firearms that created this. They never let a tragedy go to waste. And that's what Kat Sunstein wanted them to do. And they have wholeheartedly embraced that. It is a central pillar of their twisted machination and ideology. And it's a dark, dank, dangerous thing that has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. Where does it end? Because we know that they always start with, well, it's first the assault weapons, then it's semi-automatic, then it's bolt action, then it's any gun. In England, when they had pushed for their gun ban, they even went so far as to say people were converting toy guns, little cap guns, into real guns, and pushed for their removals from toy stores and supermarkets. We see here that there are judges that uphold a school so-called zero-tolerance policy of having a kid suspended for having a Pop-Tart that was chewed to look like a gun. We've seen that before. We've seen that this ludicrous level that they push things to is always what it comes down to because they are totalitarians. There's no way to sugarcoat that or to candy coat that. There's no way to sweep that under the rug, but you're still not going to hear very much about it from the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media because their narrative is to double down on this agenda. Their goal is to advance Fabian socialism irrespective of the deleterious impact or the detrimental impact that it has on the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic and community of popular sovereigns of ours. Why? I know, I keep asking why, because it is so shocking that anyone would want to stand against our rights, that anyone would want to stand against freedom. But these people are nefarious. These people are wicked and evil, really evil, for lack of a better term. And so they don't want to go after the bad guys. They want to make us into bad guys. That's their goal. But isn't it time that that comes to an end? Isn't it time that we embrace our freedoms and that we stand up to these charlatans and that we acknowledge that it's gun-free zones that create these problems? No, they don't want to admit that. Not even the NRA wants to admit that. And then we see that Donald Trump, the presumptive leader of the gutless opposition party, he wants to be wishy-washy on all of this too. But we've been warning about that for at least 10.5 months now here on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer. But the Lion Trumpidians haven't been paying attention to that. They don't care. They don't want to acknowledge that that is a real thing, that these are real threats that face us. That would go against their fearless leader who can do no wrong. That's the same mentality that the Democrats are holding with respect to these representatives and senators that are engaging in a 1960s style sit-in against our rights. But it doesn't benefit any of us. It only benefits themselves. And it's always been about themselves and only themselves. Never about the people. Never about those who really matter. How shocking, how sad, how tragic that we have come to a point in our nation's history where the media will accept this as tolerable. Instead of going out as their job, of being the watchdog for the people, they are lying to and attempting to indoctrinate the people. It's not going to work. And the reason I say it's not going to work is that the truth, as Aristotle said in his Art of Rhetoric, is much easier to convey to people, and people will much more easily accept it. But there has been so much obfuscation of the truth as of late, particularly by the graduates of Pavlov's School of Journalism for the salivating mainstream media, that it's becoming hard to tell what is the truth. And that's by design, folks. That's what they're attempting to achieve. That is what their goal has always been about. which is why we here at Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, are dedicated to speaking into our microphones to convey the truth to you. But don't just take what we're saying here at face value. Look into it for yourself. See whether what we're saying makes sense or lines up with your perception of reality. The entire goal here is to empower you, because the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists, these wolves in sheep's clothing, they're not seeking to empower you, they're seeking the exact and polar opposite. They are seeking to deprive you of your rights, to take away your power. But no one can take away your power unless you allow them to. No one can trample upon your liberties unless you, in your capacity as a popular sovereign and citizen of the United States of America, allow these charlatans, frauds, hucksters, con artists, and snake oil salesmen to trample upon your rights. By fostering this fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our shared United States Constitution, and thereby your fundamental and inalienable rights, which were endowed to you by your Creator, the God of nature, you are empowered to stand up to these people and say no. And that is exactly what our founding fathers would expect us to do. That is what we must do, because these people will never rest on their laurels. You see, we do work at this at a bit of a disadvantage, because we think that because our position is right and based on truth and reality, that once we achieve some small victory, they will give up. But they won't. Because it presupposes that they have a sense of shame, but we have shown time and time again that they have no sense of shame whatsoever, that they do not care about the consequences of their deeds and actions. They're intellectually disingenuous about everything that they are foisting upon the American people. They don't even hide the fact that they're socialists anymore. Remember the Vermont Senator Whiteface Boy Sanders ran as a self-avowed socialist. He should have been laughed out of everything. The media should have destroyed him. But they didn't. And the reason they didn't is that they are in cahoots with him. They love and advocate for and support that sort of system that is diametrically opposed to the clear and concise language contained within the four corners of our shared United States Constitution. They are complicit in all of this. They are the ones that are continuing to push this agenda come hell or high water. Where does it end? There is no end in sight. There is no end within the foreseeable future to their twisted machinations. And we need to stop looking for some messianic figure to come out of the clouds of the heavens to save us, because only we are endowed with the power and authority to save this nation. By the very design of our representative republic, it is our onus, our duty, our obligation, and above all, our responsibility to proactively maintain and safeguard our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights. I know, it's not an easy position. It's not easy to keep watching these frauds and charlatans, particularly when they overzealously regulate every facet of our daily lives, attempt to make carving a living out all the more difficult. To keep an eye on them is all the more difficult. It's as the great visionary Zygmunt Dobbs warned in his magnus opus, Keynes at Harvard, that they know that we lack the political capital, the power, the energy to keep forth and to keep up with their twisted agenda. And their twisted agenda is just that. It is designed by its intrinsic nature to strip and deprive us of our fundamental and inalienable rights. And they will stop at nothing to achieve their goals. And they are patient, if nothing else. That's what's so dangerous about them. That's what makes them so detrimental. It's that they are meticulous in their design to fundamentally transform the country. Remember that Barack Hussein Obama back in the 2008 campaign said that we were 5 minutes from fundamentally transforming the United States of America. Well, this is what he meant, folks. This is what he was attempting to achieve. This was his goal. The weakening of the American people, the tearing apart of this nation at its seams, that is what he has been working towards since he first assumed the reins of political power back in January of 2009. And the frothing at the mouth Fabian socialists that occupy the Democrat Party are all in favor of it. That's why they are orchestrating a protest against our rights. Folks, they are protesting your existence. That's what it comes down to. They are protesting your ability to care for yourself, to protect your families, to exercise your rights. Since when did that become acceptable in the United States of America? I know that it's wholly unacceptable to me, and I'm fairly safe in assuming that it's wholly unacceptable to my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, and to our first Air Marshal, Mr. Nelson Ward. It comes down to harsh reality. And the harsh reality that faces us right now, right here, as I speak into this microphone, is that these people are against us. These people loathe and despise us. These people will stop at nothing to weaken us. And that has been their goal from the beginning. And the Republican Party has already shown too much of a sign of willing to cave on our rights. This is why Jeremy and I have so oft times reiterated on past episodes of Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that our fundamental and inalienable God-given rights are non-negotiable. They should not be placed on the negotiating table. And that is another reason why we have such a major problem with the mafioso Quafioso, whose entire campaign is built not on a house of cards, but a Waffle House. Because he's already been waffling on our fundamental and inalienable right to keep and bear firearms. He's already been showing a willingness to negotiate with this, and yet he doesn't have any money. He expects us to flip the bill. He's a miser who goes out and expects us to flip the bill when he had said all throughout the primary process that he would be self-funding. Where do the lies end? Where does the obfuscation of the truth end? Where do we finally say enough is enough? At what point will it take for the American people to stand up in staunch opposition to these charlatans? I don't know. I hate to say that, but I don't know right now. I think that we're close. I think we're very close. I think that's why we're seeing the type of political climate that is gripping the United States of America as we head towards this general election. And if the Democrats want to make gun control a central key facet of their campaign agenda, let that be their undoing. Let that work against them. Let that be something that burns them. Because they deserve to be burned. They deserve to lose horribly. But because of the poor choice of Donald J. Trump, we are actually facing, perhaps losing, the House of Representatives, but particularly the Senate, to these frothing at the mouth, gun-grabbing Fabian socialists who are opposed to everything that we hold near and dear. That's what it comes down to, folks. There's no denying this. There's no escaping it. And therefore, what we must do is embrace the Constitution. We have always said here on Radio Aviation Excellence, the Wright Flyer, that the key is the Constitution. The key has been with us since the inception of our nation 230 plus years ago. And the sooner that we realize that all of those forces that stand against the Constitution need to be opposed, the better off we'll be. The better equipped and able we will be to finally put an end to their twisted machinations. And that's why I speak into this microphone, folks. It's to empower you, to give you the tools necessary to foster that fluent and working knowledge and understanding of our Constitution and thereby your fundamental and inalienable rights. Because no one else is going to defend your rights. It falls on us. The onus is on us and our capacity as the true ultimate wielders of popular sovereignty in this once thriving and flourishing representative republic of ours. And we will never back down from that mission. We will never turn our backs on what matters in this country. We will never bow or capitulate to these forces that are seeking to destroy us. And make no mistake about it, folks, they are trying to destroy us. They are trying to take away all that we hold near and dear. They are trying to pit American citizen against American citizen to push this twisted system that has no place in an open and honest society like that of the United States of America. And with that said, it is time for us to begin our descent. I'm going to go ahead and send the flight attendant back for one last round of alcohol. She's not going to just sit in the middle of the floor of the plane and try and sing Kumbaya. She's just going to pour you some alcohol. As always, folks, I'm Randy Wright, your captain, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Wright Flyer. I also invite you to leave any questions, comments, or concerns you may have either here on our YouTube page or our Google Plus page or our Facebook page. And on top of that, I invite you to follow us on Twitter with the Twitter handle @RadioAviationEX. One more time, folks, that's @RadioAviationEX. And there you will find our departure board that lists my personal Twitter account, the personal Twitter account of my first officer, Jeremy Grapenton, our Blogspot account, which also has audio blogs on it. Check that out, folks. It's really good information there. And our Cafe Press account, where you can sit in on your rights by buying things that display your support for the Wright Flyer. It has our logo on it or our first class passenger logo on it, your choice. All sorts of goodies have them. Shot glasses, iPad, iPhone, Galaxy phones, any type of Android phone, protectors, laptop covers, tote bags, shirts, hats, neckties, clocks, watches, you name it, it's there. With such a wide array of products, folks, we're sure you'll find something that meets your fancy. Go ahead and take a look at that, folks, and give us a little bit of support. As always, we thank you for flying the Wright Flyer. We will see you next time. Do take care.